In our previous video, we discussed a network configuration protocol called Netconf. We're going to take a look at another one here in this video. It's called Restconf, and Restconf, it is a standard. It's defined in RFC 8040, and it's going to allow us, much like Netconf, to retrieve information from a device and send configuration information to that device. But with Restconf, the conversation between the device that is sending the configuration or requesting the configuration and the actual router itself or the switch or whatever device we're configuring, that conversation is sent back and forth using HTTP verbs, or sometimes we call those HTTP methods like get or post or put or patch or delete. And these are the same verbs or methods that we use when we're interacting with a web page. And you might remember with Netconf, our data had to be encoded in XML format. That's an option for Restconf. We could use XML format, but more commonly we use the JSON format. And also like Netconf, this is built on top of the Yang data modeling language. So we can have a data model representing an interface configuration, an OSPF configuration, or some other type of configuration that can be vendor interoperable. Now let's talk a bit more about these HTTP verbs that we're going to be using. There's an acronym that we frequently hear called CRUD, and this goes way back to the early database days when we wanted to do something with a database record, like create a record or read a record, or we might want to update a record or delete a record. Well, we want to do those same types of things with our network device configuration. We might want to create a new configuration, and create is going to overwrite what's already there. Read is going to retrieve information from that device. Update is not going to do like create and erase everything and then rewrite it. It's just going to update existing configuration information. And of course, delete would be deleting some information. But it's from create, read, update, and delete where we get that acronym of CRUD. And I wanted to give you a side-by-side comparison of the HTTP verbs or methods that we would use to carry out these CRUD functions and contrast that with the netconf operation we would use. Like we saw in our previous video that used the edit config or get config commands. But here with Restconf, we might use post to erase the configuration and rewrite whatever we're posting. We could retrieve information from our CSR 1000V in our example using get. I could say put or patch if I wanted to update some configuration information without erasing it to start with, or I could delete some information. Now let's take a look at Restconf in action by going out to a live interface. We're sitting here on my desktop computer, and I'm using a utility called Postman, and you can get free access to this by going to postman.com. And what this utility does for us is allow us to send requests, in our case, to a CSR 1000V. I can use those HTTP methods like get or put or post to retrieve information from and send configuration instructions to a device. And in this demo, I want to do both. I want to get information from that CSR 1000V, and then I want to do a configuration change. And we will put some information on that CSR 1000V. First, let's pull down the interface configuration from that router. I'm going to go under workspaces. I've got one called My Workspace, and I've got a collection called Restconf, and I want to create a new request. And here are those different methods or verbs that we could use. I want to get information this time, so I'll use the get verb, and I'm going to say HTTPS, here's the IP address of my router, Restconf data, here's the Yang data model and the specific container within that Yang data model, interfaces. Oh, by the way, there is a prerequisite that we need to do on the router. If it's not already done for us, let me go over to that CSR 1000V. We need to enable Restconf, and we do that simply by saying Restconf. And I've already configured a secure HTTP web server on this router as well so that we can communicate with it using HTTPS. Now, there are a few things that I need to set up in order to actually communicate with this router. Let's go under authentication, and I'll do basic authentication. I have a username set up of Kevin, and the password is Cisco. Let's make sure I spell that correctly. I need to set up some headers. There's going to be one header called accept, and the type of data that I want to accept, I'll say it's application / Yang-data plus JSON. I also want to say content type. It's the same. I'll just copy paste this. And I think we're ready to send this GET request over to the CSR1000V. Let's say send it. It comes back with a 200 OK message. That's good news. And we see in this Yang data format, using the IETF interfaces Yang data module, we see information about the interfaces on this router. Here's Gigabit Ethernet 1. It's an Ethernet interface. It's enabled. Here's its IP address. Here's the subnet mask. I don't have any configuration for Gig Ethernet 2 or 3 or 4, but this gives us a quick overview of the interface configuration information that we have right now. The next thing we want to do is actually do some configuration on this CSR1000V. Let's create a loopback interface. And let's first of all verify we don't have one right now. Let's do a show IP interface brief. And I've got 4 gig Ethernet interfaces, but no loopback interface. And I'm going to create a new request. And this time we're going to be putting a configuration. And I could use that IETF interfaces data module, do some copying and pasting, get rid of what I don't need, and come up with the body of the request that I want to send to the CSR1000V. But many times we can find some examples online that we can just use and modify for our purposes. For example, if I go up under Search Postman and I search for CSR1000V, we have several examples that we could peruse. Here's one I spotted earlier, Restconf CSR1000V. Let's go over there really quick. In this repository on GitHub, it actually has the body of the code that we would use to set up a loopback interface. Let's copy that. Let's go back to my workspace. Let's create a new request. And again, we said we wanted to put this request. Here's the body. Let's paste that in. We're going to create interface loopback 100. Let me change the description. Created by Kevin using Restconf. Now this is not an Ethernet interface, it's a software loopback interface. I'll just leave it at the pre-configured IP address and subnet mask. All that looks good. We still need to have authentication set up. I'll use basic authentication with the username of Kevin and a password of Cisco. Still have to have the headers configured like we did before, except is going to be application/yang-data plus JSON, and content type. It's going to be the same thing. Let's copy paste. And for the URL, I've already got it written out. Let me just paste it in. But we're saying HTTPS. We're going to this IP address of our CSR1000V, Restconf data IETF interfaces just like before. But we're going into the container of interfaces and we're specifying interface loopback 100. Notice that that matches this name that we've put in the body of our message. And I think we're ready to put this on the CSR1000V. Let's send it. It comes back and says created. Let's verify that it's created. Let's go back over to our router and say show IP interface brief. And there we have it. Loopback 100 with an IP address of 10.10.10.1. We created that by using a Yang data model with our information in it as far as interface ID, IP address, subnet mask. We sent that in JSON format using the put HTTP verb using Restconf. Now we're doing this very manually right now using Postman, but in day-to-day operation, we might be using some sort of an application to express our intent, and that application, be it some sort of a nice front-end GUI application or a Python program that we've written, but maybe that application, it's sending this information down to a network controller using these HTTP methods. And that is a look at yet another network programmability protocol we have, Restconf.